businesses to allow them, Madam Speaker, to create the jobs that we know they can. I have the utmost confidence in small businesses. Madam Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Florida.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'm very pleased to yield 3 minutes to the distinguished gentlewoman from Texas, my good friend, Ms. Jackson Lee.
Gentlelady from Texas is recognized for 3 minutes.
Unanimous consent to address the House.
Gentlelady is recognized.
I thank Judge Hastings, and I thank him very much for telling us the story of America, from spring cleaners to families that have held their businesses for a long period of time. And I really wish I could join my friend. I know he's pleading for us to believe that any job will be created, but frankly, the answer is that there is no requirement for jobs to be created under this tax bill. What this tax bill does is complicate any manner of tax reform which Americans are begging for. It adds to the already budgeting, growing Bush tax cuts. Now this added burden, $6 trillion in the combination package of the existing tax cuts under the Bush administration. It adds to the deficit of human life. And let me just tell you about some young woman, a caretaker, a mother, maybe a mother who's at home and works at home not only to take care of her children but as a home business, or maybe a caretaker taking care of an elderly or disabled person. Let me tell you what these tax cuts will do, and this is what it equals. It equals almost $180 billion in cuts in food stamps, where soldiers' families cannot eat and the caretakers cannot provide for their families. It equals to the increase in the Stafford loans to 6.8% in interest, where middle-class families are priced out of higher education. It equals the cut in Medicaid to women who need access to health care. And I don't know why we haven't addressed our good friends in the restaurant industry. These are the people whose doors are open and truly could hire an additional staff who has the smallest margin of profit. We're not doing anything for depreciation relief. No, we're sitting around giving the top 3% over 1/2 of this tax break. A big Christmas in the middle of April. 125,000 millionaires will get a check for $58,000. And then it'll cost a budget-busting $46 billion. In my own state of Texas, is an article that says we are pricing the middle class, Congressman Hastings, out of higher education. They're investing in research, but tuition is going up and there's no relief. And the loans that we give from the federal government, as I said, will be almost 7% in interest in just about 70 days. This is what this tax cut would do. I'm not afraid to stand up for small businesses, but you absolutely need to look at the framework. 500 employees. You could be a big law firm. You could be a big engineering firm, and God bless you. I want you to keep working. That's why I voted on the transportation bill. But what I need to have happen is that there is a requirement for jobs. The stimulus package created 3 million jobs because we had a mission of shovel-ready projects. And in addition, we gave monies to people who put the money out on the street, but not...
An additional 30 seconds.
I thank the distinguished gentleman. But not in this case. No requirement for jobs. Well, you want to sit here and tell at-home moms, working moms, like the young woman that I wanted to tell you about who gets up early morning, doesn't get into a car, gets onto a bus, rides that bus to get her child to the school, jumps off the bus, makes sure she can run to the front door of the school, drop the child before the bus turns around to get her back on the bus to go across town to get a job or to go to her work. You're cutting her access to health care because you're taking $46 billion. Mr. Speaker, all I can say to you, this is a budget buster on top of $6 trillion, Madam Speaker, excuse me, of which we are paying for the Bush tax cuts. We're doing nothing for restaurants, nothing for small businesses, and nothing for the working young woman that I've told you about this morning. I yield back.
Gentleman from Texas.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. By the way, President Obama even admitted that did not work. That shovel-ready proposition that he tried to sell across the country simply did not work. I would be for the President's ideas if they worked. What they're about is this supposed fairness, which diminishes the economic opportunity for this country to grow and have jobs and make small business.
Would the gentleman yield? It
robust.
created 3 million
I choose
jobs.
not to at this time. Thank you, gentlewoman had her time. Madam Speaker, this time I'd like to yield 2 minutes to the gentlewoman from West Virginia, Mrs. Capito.
Gentlelady from West Virginia, recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Speaker and my friend from Texas for yielding me the time. I wanted to come down and talk today. I support the rule, but I really support H.R. 9, the small business tax cut bill. This tax relief will go to 28,000 small businesses in West Virginia. I'm from a small state. Small businesses, I heard earlier, the statistics create 70% of the job. In my state, it's probably 90% of the jobs are small business owners. Entrepreneurship and small businesses are going to drive us to recovery, not more spending and more debt. And I heard the gentlelady talk about restaurants. That's who this is aimed at. It's aimed at our top 3 small businesses in West Virginia would be health care and service industry and the food industry. I spent the last 2 weeks traveling in my district and listening to the concerns of families and job creators. And they're very frustrated by the high price of gasoline, rising health care costs, and new regulation upon new regulation. It's making it difficult for our job operators to operate and our job creators to operate and to grow the jobs. A recent study by the U.S. Chamber found that 80% of small businesses reported that taxation, regulation, and legislation from Washington make it harder for them for their businesses to hire more employees. This tax cut will have an immediate effect, I believe, on the economy and certainly in my state. Just several weeks ago, the Senate, the House, and the White House, we worked together to pass the Jobs Act. And I've already gotten very positive feedback from several people that they're, number one, glad that we're looking at the real problem in this country, which is the lack of jobs and job creation, and number two, that we did something together, that we worked together to try to get ourselves out of this slow recovery that we're in right now. I hope we can work in the same bipartisan spirit and pass this tax cut to give our job creators the ability to hire somebody else, buy new equipment, expand their businesses, choose another location, all the things that I think this tax cut bill will provide. And I yield back.
Gentleman from Florida.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I would urge my friend from Texas that I'm going to be the last speaker, and I'm prepared to close if he has no further speakers.
Thank you very much. In fact, I would tell the gentleman we have no additional speakers other than myself, and I'll plan to close.
Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, I yield myself the balance of the time.
The gentleman is recognized for
H.R. 9 is not about creating jobs or helping small businesses increase hiring. It is another in a long line of Republican proposals that benefit those of us, including those of us in the House of Representatives, that are the better off Americans at the expense of the middle class. My Republican friends rejected an amendment offered by our colleague, Representative Crowley, which I offered in the Rules Committee in his stead, which would have prevented businesses from eliminating jobs in the United States while creating jobs overseas under this bill. Procedurally, it is also disconcerting that contrary to my Republican colleagues' self-professed commitment to an open process, Democrats have been allowed only one substitute in an otherwise closed process. Nor was H.R. 9 the subject of any hearing before either the Full Ways and Means Committee or the Select Revenue Measures Subcommittee, with the exception of a brief question and answer session with Joint Committee on Taxation staff during the markup. Finally, instead of taking real steps to address the very real need to create opportunities for businesses to succeed in a still nascent economic recovery, House Republicans are more than willing to rush through another tax bill that could, if it were to pass, and it is not going to, and they know that, only help those of us that are better off in society, while sticking middle and low-income families with the bill and creating exactly 0 jobs. And you call this opportunity? Madam Speaker, ask unanimous consent to insert in the text of the amendment to the rule in the record, along with extraneous material, immediately prior to the vote on the previous question.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, I urge my colleagues to vote no on this opportunity-destroying measure, and to defeat the previous question, I urge a no vote on the rule, and I yield back the balance of my time.
And from Florida yields back the balance of his time. The gentleman from Texas.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I appreciate the gentleman from Florida not only for his vigorous defense of the Democrat position to increase taxes, but I would like to, if I can, state what really are the facts of the case and what is in this bill. The claim is that tax cuts will be available for small businesses even if they shift jobs overseas. Well, the fact is this legislation allows the 20% deduction for qualified domestic business income. Domestic, that's here. Domestic business. It would not be allowed to include money that was earned overseas. So I think that that's a good part of this bill. I think what Mr. Cantor did is understood we're trying to grow American jobs. And there have also been a lot of statements made by our friends, but I think the American people need to hear this about the bill and the substitute which will be allowed, which was allowed in the Rules Committee, and that is similar to H.R. 9, this bill, the Levin Amendment, which will be the substitute, does not include any provision addressing companies that continue to make foreign investment. It's void of that. Both proposals do tie the small business tax deduction to domestic wages. So both bills do that exact same thing. So to accuse us of not doing something or something that would create or stop business from having jobs overseas, that's void in both bills. They're both consistent. It's about domestic works. Similar to H.R. 9, the Levin Amendment does not require job creation to benefit from the tax deduction. No one says you have to go and create jobs. We understand enough about business to know this is what they're asking for so they can go and grow jobs. The Levin Amendment does deviate from H.R. 9 in one very significant way, and that is the amount of money that would be available to small business so that they can expand the economy, grow jobs, and create opportunities for Americans. Obviously, what we're here today to do is to grow the economy. Madam Speaker, I'd like to ask unanimous consent to include in the record an article which was from the Wall Street Journal of June of 2011.
Without objection.
And I'd like to read just a little bit of this. That was from June of 2011, remembering the time frame. And it says, this past January, Illinois Governor Pat Quinn signed into law a 67% increase in the state personal income tax rate and a 45% increase in corporate taxes. By the way, off what is here, but this was done for fairness. The same proposal that Barack Obama, as our president who was just elected, was trying to push in the campaign. Illinois thought it sounded really, really great. So let's see what happened, what fairness resulted in. And I come back to the article. Between its passage and June, 6 months later, Illinois lost 56,223 jobs, according to statistics released by their own departments there in the state of Illinois. But here's what's really amazing, not just that they lost the job, but the hysteria that ensued therein. And I continue to read, to combat the job losses caused by higher taxes on businesses, the Illinois Department of Commerce has already shelled out some $230 million in corporate subsidies to keep more than 24 companies from fleeing the state. So they were not even going to get $230 million worth of additional revenue. They put this tax on, and now they're having to beg people to stay. Madam Speaker, I would be for what President Obama and our friends, the Democrats, are for if it worked the way they said it would. The facts of the case are simple. Republicans understand, because we not just we understand business, but we understand the ability to listen and give small business what it's asking for. They'll do their job. I know small business, and I know it well. They'll get their job done, and they'll do it quite well. They'll add employment. They'll hire their neighbors. They'll hire more women and minorities who can come in and provide real dreams for people and give them that not just entrepreneurship angle, but the angle to make sure that we're adding revenue in this country. Republicans get it, and Democrats too. We are for fairness in a different way, and fairness comes from a job and job creation and the American dream, not losing jobs and explaining to people, I'm sorry, we just had to do this just to make things fair. Fairness in not having a job is not fairness. We're aiming for job creation and the development of that, and that's why we're asking people to make sure that we pass this bill today. I applaud our Republican Majority Leader Eric Cantor for introducing this legislation. It comes from him listening to people across this country. I encourage a yes vote on the rule, yielding back the balance of my time, and I now move the previous question on the resolution.
The question is on ordering the previous question on the resolution. Those in favor will signify by saying aye. Opposed, say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Madam Speaker,
Gentleman
on
from
that I
Florida.
ask the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested, and those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having arisen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. And pursuant to Clause 8 and Rule 9 and Clause 9 of Rule 20, this 15-minute vote on ordering the previous question will be followed by 5-minute votes on adopting House Resolution 620, if ordered, and agreeing to the Speaker's approval of the Journal. This is a 15-minute vote.
The House conducting the first of 3 roll call votes on this Thursday morning. Members voting on a procedural motion related to the small business tax bill they've been debating, providing a one-time tax cut for businesses that employ less than 500 workers. Again, this is a 15-minute vote. This will be followed by votes on the rule for debate on the bill, and then a vote on the Journal, the record of the previous day's legislative activities. The Senate gavelled in this morning at 9:30 to continue working on reauthorization of the Violence Against Women bill and reform of the Postal Service. It expires later this year. The Violence Against Women bill does, and at 2:15, the Senate has 2 votes related to moving forward with the postal reform bill. You can see the Senate live on C-SPAN 2, and of course the House right here on C-SPAN. The House voting right now on a procedural motion related to the small business tax bill, providing a one-time tax cut for businesses that employ fewer than 500 workers. Over in the Senate, senators working on reauthorization of the Violence Against Women bill and reform of the Postal Service that expires later this year. There will be a 215 vote in the Senate related to moving forward with the postal reform bill. Right now, C-SPAN 3 has been bringing you live coverage of the House Armed Services Committee hearing on the security situation in Syria. Testifying, remarks from Defense Secretary Leon Panetta and Joint Chiefs Chair General Martin Dempsey. That hearing in a break right now because the House is conducting a series of votes. When the votes are over, that will resume, and you'll be able to see it again live on C-SPAN 3. Right now, they are showing opening statements. Again, that's on C-SPAN 3. Coming up this afternoon at 2 Eastern, House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi will conduct her weekly legislative briefing. C-SPAN 3 will also carry that. And at 11 Eastern, about 20 minutes from now or so, Space Shuttle Discovery is expected to be moved to its new home. It's at the Udvar Hazy Center near Dulles Airport in Virginia. cspan.org will cover that live.
On this question, the yeas are 234 and the nays are 179. The previous question is ordered. The question is on adoption of the resolution as amended. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chairs, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The gentleman from Florida.
Madam Speaker, I ask for a recorded vote.
Recorded vote is requested. Those favoring the recorded vote will rise. A sufficient number having arisen of recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device.
The second of three votes in the House right now, members voting on the rule for debating the small business tax bill, giving businesses that employ fewer than 500 workers a one-time tax cut. The Associated Press has a report about the bill. It just released a couple of moments ago. Republicans cast themselves as champions of small business as they pushed a bill toward House passage today that would cut taxes for nearly every employer in the country. Democrats call the measure merely the latest GOP effort to funnel federal help to those who are already successful. The GOP-run House was ready to approve the legislation in an election year vote, lacking either suspense or any expectation that the plan would become law. The bill will die in the Democratic-controlled Senate, and for good measure, the White House has threatened a veto by President Obama, saying the proposal is far too broad and generous to the wealthy. Its ultimate fate, though, was beside the point. With the economy and jobs the unrivaled top issue in this year's presidential and congressional campaigns, both parties were using the battle to underscore that they would make things better for voters, while the other side would not. Again, a story from the Associated Press. Alan Fram is the writer.
Chaffetz votes aye. Mr. Cassidy. Mr. Cassidy votes aye.
On this vote, the yeas are 234 and the nays are 178. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the unfinished business is the question on agreeing to the Speaker's approval of the journal on which the yeas and nays were ordered. The question is on agreeing to the Speaker's approval of the journal. Members will record their votes by electronic device, and this will be a 5-minute vote. A 5-minute vote.
So following this vote on the journal, general debate on the small business tax cut. They'll also debate a Democrat substitute to the measure, and then another series of votes a little later in the afternoon. That should wrap it up legislatively for the House for the day. C-SPAN 3 will resume live coverage of the House Armed Services Committee hearing on the security situation in Syria after these votes are complete. Testifying again, Defense Secretary Panetta and Joint Chiefs Chair General Martin Dempsey. That should, again, start in just a couple of minutes after these votes are concluded. Also just about to get underway, a celebration to mark the arrival of Space Shuttle Discovery at its new home at the Udvar Hazy Center near Dulles Airport in Virginia. cspan.org will have that live starting in about 8 minutes, starting at 11 a.m. Eastern on cspan.org.
On this vote, the yeas are 290 and the nays are 100.
Ms. Sanchez, Linda Sanchez of California. Ms. Linda Sanchez of California votes no.
On this vote, the yeas are 290 and the nays are 118. With 3 voting present, the journal stands approved.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Camp, seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to House Resolution 620, I call up the bill H.R. 9 and ask for its immediate consideration.
Clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar Number 292, H.R. 9, a bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to provide a deduction for domestic business income of qualified small businesses.
Pursuant to House Resolution 620, the amendment in the nature of a substitute recommended by the Committee on Ways and Means, printed in the bill, is adopted. The bill as amended is considered read. After 70 minutes of debate on the bill as amended, it shall be in order to consider the further amendment in the nature of a substitute printed in House Report 112-447, if offered by the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Levin, or his designee, which shall be considered read and shall be separately debatable for 25 minutes, equally divided and controlled by the proponent and an opponent. The gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Camp, and the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Levin, each control 35 minutes, and the chair would recognize the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Camp.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and to include extraneous material on H.R. 9.
Without objection.
I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
I rise today in support of H.R. 9, the Small Business Tax Cut Act. This legislation will allow small businesses with fewer than 500 employees to take a 20% tax deduction. Small businesses are the engine of job creation, and while we pursue comprehensive tax reform that will give all businesses certainty to invest and hire, this bill will help small businesses to reinvest, hire new workers, or provide a raise to an employee. The policies put forth by President Obama and congressional Democrats have yielded more government spending, but have failed to generate strong economic growth and the jobs Americans need. Mr. Speaker, the House is not in order.
Gentleman's correct. Chair would ask members to cease conversations and remove their conversations from the